All right, today we're setting the stage for a real showdown, a head-to-head comparison of two absolute titans in modern software, serverless versus microservices. This isn't just a technical debate. The choice you make here, it dictates how fast you build, how big you can scale, and yeah, how much it's all going to cost you in the end. So let's just dive right in. If you're building, well, pretty much anything new today, this is the question you have to ask yourself. The blueprint you pick right now, that's going to define your flexibility, your speed, your entire performance for years. No pressure, right? But seriously, get it right and you're clearing the runway for massive growth. Get it wrong, and you might as well be pouring digital concrete on your feet. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the dilemma modern architects face. Then we'll meet our two main contenders. After that, it's time for the head-to-head comparison. We'll even look at a pretty powerful hybrid model where they team up. And finally, we'll wrap up by helping you choose your own blueprint. So you might be wondering, why the big fuss? Why do we even need these fancy new approaches? Well, to get where we're going, you gotta know where we've been. See, before our two contenders ever stepped into the ring, there was one undisputed king of the hill, the monolith. A monolith is exactly what it sounds like, one giant single piece of code. Your user interface, all your business logic, your data stuff, it's all tangled up together in one big unit. And look, it was simple to get started for sure, but it had this huge problem. Say you wanted to change one tiny little thing, like a button color. Guess what? You had to redeploy the entire application. It was just so slow, so rigid, and it created this desperate need for anything more agile. And that's where our two modern challengers come in. Both of them were basically born in the cloud, built from the ground up for flexibility and massive scale. In this corner, we've got serverless, and in the other, microservices. So let's get a proper introduction. First up, serverless. Okay, let's get one thing straight right away. The name is kind of misleading. Of course there are servers. There are always servers. The whole point is that you, the developer, don't have to think about them, manage them, or even look at them. You just focus on writing your code, and the cloud provider takes care of all the messy stuff, the provisioning, the scaling, the patching, all of it. So here's the promise, right? You get to focus only on your code and your business logic. Think of it like this. You're throwing a huge party. With serverless, it's a completely catered event. You don't book the venue, you don't hire the chef, you don't worry about the cleanup. You just show up with your guests, that's your code, and the best part, you only pay for what people actually eat and drink. No waste. And in the other corner, we've got microservices. Now, this approach is all about breaking a big, clunky application down into a bunch of smaller, totally independent services. So you'd have one little service that just handles user logins, another one just for payment processing, another for the shopping cart. Each one can be built, deployed, and even scaled all by itself. So if serverless is that catered party, microservices are like having an infinite set of high-end Lego bricks. You are the master builder. You have total, granular control to build exactly what you want, however you want. You can use different colored bricks or different programming languages for each part. You can swap out a single brick or an entire wall without having to tear down the whole castle. It's all about ultimate control and customization. Okay, introductions are over. We know our contenders. Now, it is time for the main event. Let's get to the head-to-head showdown. We're going to put them through 4 rounds, looking at the key differences to see where each one really, truly shines. Round 1, scalability. Ding, ding! In the serverless corner, you've got the automation champ. I mean, if one of your functions suddenly gets hammered with a million requests, the cloud provider just handles it. It spins up what's needed automatically, and when the traffic dies down, it scales right back to zero. Microservices, on the other hand, they're the control freak. They can scale just as big, absolutely, but it's a manual job. You have way more control over how it scales, but you're the one in the control room pulling all the levers. Okay, round 2, development speed. Serverless is the agile sprinter, no question. Because you're not bogged down with managing infrastructure, you can just build and ship new features at lightning speed. It's built for rapid iteration. Microservices? That's more for the master craftsman. You can build these incredibly robust, highly customized services, but it takes more planning, more coordination, and just more time. Round 3 is a big one, cost. With serverless, the model is super simple, pay per use. If your code is sitting idle, not running, you are paying exactly 0, not a single cent. It's incredibly efficient. Microservices work differently. You have to provision your infrastructure, your servers, ahead of time, and you pay for that capacity 24/7, whether it's running at full tilt or just sitting there doing nothing. And for our final round, let's talk granularity, which is really just a fancy word for how small are the pieces. A monolith is one giant piece. Microservices break that giant piece into smaller, independent services. But serverless? It takes it to a whole other level. It breaks those services down into tiny, individual functions. It is the most finely grained, most broken down approach you can possibly get. So let's put it all together. Here's the showdown at a glance. It really boils down to this. Serverless gives you that automatic scaling, insane speed, and that sweet pay-per-use cost model. But you give up some control. Microservices, on the other hand, hands you the keys to the kingdom. You get total control, but it comes with more management overhead and those upfront infrastructure costs. Speed versus control. That's the core trade-off.
But wait a minute, what if this isn't an either-or situation? What if you don't actually have to pick a side? In a pretty cool plot twist, it turns out these two rivals can actually team up and create something really powerful.
This is the idea of serverless microservices, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. You take the whole philosophy of microservices, breaking your app into small independent parts, but then you build each of those parts using serverless functions. So you get the clean organization of microservices with the amazing cost savings and auto-scaling of serverless. It's kind of like getting the best of both worlds.
Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some hurdles. Figuring out exactly where one function should end and another should begin, that can get really tricky. Then there's the infamous cold start problem. That little bit of lag when a function that's been sleeping has to wake up. And just imagine trying to trace a single user request as it bounces between dozens, maybe hundreds of different functions. Yeah, monitoring can get complex fast. So, after all that, we're back to the big question. How do you choose? How do you pick the right blueprint for your project? Well, it really all boils down to what you're trying to build. Let's look at some places where each one really shines.
Serverless is going to be your best friend for anything that's event-driven. We're talking AI and machine learning, big data analytics, or if you're building out a hybrid cloud strategy. Bottom line, if your project needs to move fast with lots of quick changes and iterations, serverless is almost always the way to go.
Now, microservices really come into their own when you're dealing with massive, complex applications where you need that fine-grained control over every little piece. Think large-scale cloud environments or real-time data streaming. And they are the absolute classic choice if you're trying to break apart and modernize an old, clunky monolith. So in the end, it really just comes down to asking yourself a few honest questions. How fast do you really need to build this thing? What's your budget look like? How much control do you absolutely need over the nuts and bolts of the infrastructure? And just how complex is this application going to be? Your answers to these questions will pretty much point you straight to your winner. So, the choice is yours. When it comes to your next big idea, what are you building? Are you building a speedboat, all about agility, speed, and efficiency? Or are you building a battleship, designed for absolute power and precise, granular control? The blueprint you choose won't just define your app. It could very well define the future of your entire project.